What qualifies me for long-term disability? Hey folks, my name is Brandon Osterbond and I am an injury and disability attorney here in Central Virginia, and I help people whose long-term disability claims have been denied. So what would qualify someone for a long-term disability under an insurance contract provided by an employer? Well, first thing I'll say is that every insurance policy is different. They all have different definitions of total disability, and it's important to make sure that you know the definition of your policy. But a lot of the insurance policies use similar language and they apply similar terminology. One of the many definitions that we typically see is that you are totally disabled if you are unable to perform the main duties of your occupation or the essential duties of your occupation. And there's usually a question, does that mean that I can't do all of them? Or if I can't do one of them, is that enough? And the answer is, it depends. It depends on the insurance policy, what the terms of the policy say, and then how the courts have interpreted that language in your jurisdiction. So, what would qualify you for a type of disability that would be provided for under one of these insurance policies? Well, there are several medical conditions, and probably too many to sit here and name, but I can tell you just a couple of them that I've experienced. One of the many types of injuries that we see often in car accidents, or we're learning more and more about it in football games and things like that, are traumatic brain injuries. Even a concussion can produce what is called a mild traumatic brain injury. And a mild traumatic brain injury can produce a lot of symptoms that completely and utterly render you unable to work. So those sorts of things could be a type of condition that would cause you to be unable to work. In addition to that, there are other just physical conditions that are not traumatically acquired. For example, I had a client who had a diagnosis for Graves' disease. And Graves' disease is a thyroid condition, but your thyroid essentially regulates all of the chemicals going throughout your body. So it affects your hormones, it affects your testosterone, it affects your cognitive abilities, it affects your anxiety, your depression, it affects everything. This is a physical condition that has a lot of mental health manifestations and a lot of cognitive manifestations. But these are just a couple of examples that have rendered some of my clients completely and utterly unable to work. And I say completely and utterly unable to work. There are some things that they can do. There are things that are activities of daily living that they can do, but there are things in the workplace that they would be required to do that they simply cannot perform anymore. And they cannot perform it to a degree that is acceptable in the workplace. And if they cannot perform the main duties of their occupation, for example, if you can't sit down and create a budget when that's one of your main duties of your occupation, then you can't do that job anymore. So a lot of insurance policies will have what is called an own occupation definition and an any occupation definition. The own occupation definition is usually relevant for the first year or 2 years, depending on the policy, that you are disabled. So from the date of your disability and 2 years beyond that. And then after that period, the any occupation definition of disability would then take over. And that any occupation definition is much more broad. So it's harder to qualify for disability under the any occupation definition than it would be to qualify under the own occupation definition, because maybe you can go find a job that doesn't require you to perform a budget. And those types of jobs are much more readily available than those higher level jobs that require you to do hard cognitive things. There are other types of jobs or disabilities, physical disabilities, that would make you unable, physically or mentally unable to work. And these are just a couple of examples that we've seen most recently. But any type of condition that keeps you from performing the main duties of your occupation or the essential duties of your occupation could qualify you for long-term disability benefits under your policy. If you are wondering whether your condition qualifies you for disability under the definitions of your policy, give us a call. We'd be happy to look at your policy, and we'd be happy to look at your condition and your symptoms and your doctor's reports and give you advice on how to fit fit those together so that your long-term disability claim is approved the first time, so that we can get you on claim and keep you on claim for as long as your doctors say that you're disabled. I hope this conversation has been helpful. If you have any questions about that, give us a call, send us an email, and we are happy to help.